Welcome viewers, welcome once again to the live program Hotline with Dookie on ieTV and ieTVtt.com. We all know that the vicinity of the Penal de Bay area, particularly the Penal de Bay Corporation, is an area it is known in Trinidad and Tobago for flooding. When you ask about Penal de Bay, the first thing comes to our mind is flooding. It is in our discussions today. Among other things, we have newly incorporated chairman, Mr. Gowtam Maharaj, as our guest. Is a young man, a farmer, who has a vision for the corporation moving forward, particularly with the involvement of youths. Gowtam, Mr. Chairman, just related to me, the meaning of his name is founder of Eternal Bliss. Mr. Chairman, welcome to the program Hotline and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here. Welcome.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you are a farmer yourself, and the area Penal de Bay, it is known for flooding. People have begun to even embrace flooding as a part of their lives in the Penal de Bay area. Tell us, over the last couple of weeks that we have had some rainfall, have any families been affected? Did the flood affect you all as yet?
The flood did not affect in the way that we are accustomed to it. The rainy season has now started. We have had some flash flooding. But in terms of being prepared for what we are accustomed to, understanding the behavior of the water flow in this area, definitely I would say we are not disaster prepared at this point in time. We have had the experience of having flood the last heavy rainfall period, and we would recall the very emotional period of the children doing the mathematics exams and the Good Samaritans having to come forward. I myself was featured in one of the media clips where we borrowed trucks and so on to be able to bring the children out, because at that point in time, in that morning, the response that the parents would have been looking for either a cancellation communication from the ministry or the army or the ODPM or then the corporation coming to their rescue did not happen. And it is memory of that and memory of livestock loss and all of that prompts us to know that we must do much more than we have been doing to be able to adapt or mitigate against flooding. I say adapt because you used a phrase in your opening line that people in Penal de Bay have become accustomed with flood and may have to see it as a way of life.
A part of their lives, yes.
And that is true to some extent. So in terms of flood adaptation, if I am to use that phrase, and coincidentally, it is actually the name of a project that the Ministry of Planning has received a US $10 million grant from CAF, a Latin American financial support institution, for implementing measures to be able to achieve this flood adaptation and to be able to deal with the climatic changes of heavy rainfall, flooding in particular. Before I answer the question in terms of how the preparedness should take place, I would like to set the context of an understanding of asset ownership and asset vesting. The region is itself Penal de Bay, but within the region, there are owners of the assets, several owners of the different rivers and waterways, similar to how roads are assigned, roads and bridges. Therefore, the main owners or the main asset owners are the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Agriculture. And of course, for the small roadside drains, the regional corporation. This is very important to understand from a budgetary perspective, because it means when a budget is prepared and read, allocations, monetary allocations for those various asset owners are done. And the Penal de Bay will receive its allocation for roadside drains. I may take the opportunity now to also explain allocation and release. During the budget, the reading of the budget, allocations will be given. Those are sums and figures that represent what has been approved for use by the various asset owners, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Agriculture, Penal de Bay Regional Corporation. The release is the actual money release. So when the public hears that we say, okay, we do not have money, it may be, one can look at the budget and say, but you got X amount, so many millions. But I'll bring clarity to that. In the case of PSIP projects, development projects, that is that those do the bigger stuff than the corporation does, like the box trains and the retention walls and all of that. There has been zero release. There has been allocation, 21 million in allocation, but $0 in release. And this is mid-year. So it means that the corporation itself is not in a position to be able to carry out any of those type of infrastructural works. But going further, the other owners, the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture has a series of waterways that it owns. In fact, the corporation, for information, does not own any of the large waterways. All rivers and waterways are owned, the larger ones are owned by either the Ministry of Works or the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture has primarily operated and has been constructed to operate in the region for the areas where farming were predominant. The predominant crops at the time, for those who recall the region, would have been cane and rice. Both crops have now gone out the window, so that now you have lands that the rivers may fall as orphan rivers, because whilst the allocation and the owners remain the same as the Ministry of Agriculture, the focus in terms of cleaning those waterways has diminished significantly. And this is one of the challenges in terms of asset ownership that deals particularly with the Ministry of Agriculture.
Speaking about asset, Mr. Maharaj, asset ownership, you reminded me of Minister of Housing back then in Pandey days when he desilted all of the rivers. You know, it cost him his portfolio as Minister of Housing and Settlements. And this is exactly what you are referring to. When it does not fall under the corporation and you attempt to clean the rivers, the responsibility is somewhere else.
So, and it's more than responsibility, because now it would be easy to say, okay, you can just do it, it's within your region. But yeah, the equipment that is designed for larger rivers are the large excavators, you know, so that these mini backhoes and excavators that the corporation would own would not be able to tackle. Notwithstanding, currently we are doing a partnership to be able to make best of the effort at this point in time with the Ministry of Agriculture. In fact, as we speak today, tomorrow, one of our small excavators will be going out to the Ramdari Trace area to attempt a partnership to take up the slack per se for the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, a bit in terms of the root cause, the Ministry of Agriculture has a large excavator at the Penal Extension Office in their yard at this point in time. The report is that due to the procurement matters, due to funding, that excavator, and it's a fairly new excavator, has good life. If that could be repaired quickly, it means that is where we can gain in the region. So I'm sharing this because, I mean, if it gets to the right place, I'm saying it is a quick fix that will bring a big result.
If the right people hear the message, maybe they will work faster on it.
Yes, so it's good information I'm sharing in terms of, hey, there is an excavator sitting here and it needs some attention in terms of either repairs.
Repeat where it is again. Where is it sitting? At the Ministry of Agriculture.
Ministry of Agriculture, Penal Extension Office.
Penal Extension Office.
Yeah, that's their own. They own that.
Yes.
So that these repairs, it means their in-house procedures, procurement and OPR and all of that has to kick in and allow for the purchase of the part, allow for the troubleshooting of what will allow it to get back on track. And I think it's an issue with the tracks, no pun intended, but to get back on track and get those rivers clean.
And again, we come back to the issue of procurement and management.
Yeah, so it may be in some cases, whilst the procurement legislation is aimed and its purpose is to bring improvement towards transparency and all of that, it somewhere is appearing as though for the critical matters, it still remains a stumbling block, and it means it needs some type of intervention, some type of towing out or some type of higher level look down into it so approvals and waivers and so on can be given quickly, because I'm speaking from my own perspective here also from this organization, that we hear now the word OPR and so on. And notwithstanding, as I said, that the need for it is well explained, it means that if it is a hurdle to something as important as flood adaptation, it means that somebody needs to take a look and really get over that hump and hurdle very quickly, because it means that lives, and I want to touch on this. When we say flood, we think water, we think infrastructure, house, okay, somebody's house has gotten flood. But when a home, take Woodland, take Dookie, take Barrackport, take Rock Road, is flooded out, the impact of it is much more than what we see on the surface. It means that in some particular homes, children are unable to go to school for a little while after because monies have been expended in cleanup and in taking care of the appliances and so on that have gone bad. It means that when livestock is lost, it is an income earning capacity that has been lost. Take, for example, the dairy farmers, the people who sell the milk and the dahi and all of that, the products from
the egg farmers and so on, yes.
Egg farmers, they think. So it is understanding the gravitas and the importance and the criticality and the priority of ministerial intervention at this stage to be able to really help us to be in a proper disaster-ready mood. And the similar, I explained Ministry of Agriculture at length, similar applies for the Ministry of Works and Transport in terms of the waterways that they own. And some cleaning has started. The Ramon Trace has received some cleaning from the Ministry of Agriculture. The Koromata River on the Rock Road end has started. But water flow and water behavior is such that if you don't clean the entire channel, which goes to the Woodland area and out to the Godino, it means that you will still have the problem just delivered to someone else. So that the region, to understand it geographically, begins at Haggard Trace on the Moruga boundary and travels through Rock Road, through Debe, joins with Barrackport, and comes into Debe, moves in a westerly direction into Woodland and out to the sea. So that the reason why I make that representation, it is pretty long, it is a lot of tributaries, a lot of rivers intertwined, so it really requires a holistic approach, which points me to share information also, which I have started at the beginning. The Ministry of Planning has received a grant for flood adaptation, which they have chosen the South Okoposh River Basin, of which 60% of our region sits in the basin. It means that it's a positive that the South Okoposh River Basin has been targeted for that spend. But what I am saying, as chairman of the corporation, which I have made the call before, whilst the planning and the preparation and the retention of the consultants and so on is taking place at this point in time, it means that the threshold of the floods is upon us. It means that the disaster is at the next step. And therefore, I am making a call for the management of that flood adaptation program through the Ministry of Planning to be able to review quickly and make some amendments that could allow for immediate spend on the quick wins and the areas where it is much needed. For example, I'm saying excavators on the ground would make a significant difference. So if it is that through some contractual arrangement, a particular part of that spend, for which it is intended for in any case, it is just that it may be at a different point in the timeline. But at this point in time, water is upon us, basically. The rain is here, and even the meteorological prediction is that the rainfall will be much, much more fierce than we have experienced before. So again, it is saying that we must do something different and we must do it in time. And now is the time for those interventions. So my call is also to the Ministry of Planning to be able to review and effect what amendment can take place where the timeline can be brought up and the excavators and the cleaning of the waterways segment of that program can take place now. And jointly, I'm saying for those listening again, jointly together we can. Together, if that is my call is acceded to, I am sure that we'll be able to put Penal Debe in a much better place, and its residents and its burgesses will be relieved of the trauma that we experienced at the last flood.
Are you calling for local government to be given more teeth, whether it is called rural development or local government? It all falls under the Municipal Corporation Act. Do you think you need more teeth as a corporation to deal with these issues?
Well, definitely, because in terms of the administrative line of approval, it is us to our ministry, which is Ministry of Rural Development, which you have rightly identified, but then it becomes a cabinet issue. It becomes an interministerial matter. For example, if it is money spent, it would be Ministry of Finance. If it is, as in this case, as I said, the Ministry of Planning is charged with the responsibility through the UWI Engineering Department to execute that project. It impacts on them. The ODPM, which is a major player, is in terms of disaster preparedness and relief, is under Ministry of National Security. And I'm happy you raised that, because it prompted my memory on the fact that I explained early on, where in the last flood, when we were hoping that the ODPM would have kicked in earlier, it is later on I understood that that is as a resident, from the lens of a resident, that is, we were hoping, residents of Barrackpore and Woodland and they were hoping for, that was the day for the examination, that we would have seen more of the ODPM. It is now I understand that there is a trigger, a level 3, and then the ODPM is triggered and all of that. It is whether the corporation had done that trigger, not did that particular trigger, and so on. So the question is very pertinent in the sense that, is it that in a matter of this disaster handling, there should have been, or preparedness, there should be a collaborative effort amongst the ministries, and one particular ministry be given that hold to the trigger button, and maybe the Ministry of Rural Development, possibly, based on the suggestion, because it is, and I'm saying from experience, not experience in the chair, but experience as a resident, which is also a very good viewpoint to bring, is the fact that it may or may not kick in time, or at the in terms of the appropriate severity when needed. And definitely I would agree that there needs to be a review from the administrative functional perspective as to how the entire effecting of the disaster support and preparedness takes place.
Well, Chairman, I always say, it's never too late. The ideal time would have been from January to May to do this preparation and to give more teeth to the legislation. But given that the rainy season is upon us and we are expecting several dramatic rainfalls and hurricanes and so on, there are laws, Chairman, that are hidden or have very little impact on citizens, and it is important that we look at this. Let's take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we will continue this discussion on giving more teeth to legislation and the laws that are hidden and have very little impact on citizens. We'll be right back. Investigative journalism builds communities. Welcome to Hotline with Dookie on ieTV every Monday live at 1 to 2 p.m. Challenges facing the nation. The economic outlook when wages are not rising as high as food prices. Will we be making a softer economic landing? Some experts are cautiously optimistic now. Health, job security, education, social imbalance, and the security of our nation all comes to mind. Experience all of this and more just ahead on Hotline with Dookie on ieTV. Viewers, welcome back to the program Hotline with Dookie, where we are discussing flooding, particularly flooding in the Penal Debe area, an area which I mentioned earlier. They have probably become accustomed to flooding. Sad, but indeed a reality where students have to miss school, farmers are put out of business when their crops are destroyed, their eggs are destroyed, and they fail to earn a living. Chairman, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I was speaking about giving more teeth to legislation where local government is concerned, because we have many laws that are hidden and it have very little impact of citizens. What would you say about that? Do you think you all need more power as a local government body?
Well, you have hit the nail on the head, because we were speaking in the segment before with regards to what I call maybe the conundrum of how the help is what triggers the help and how the help is effected and all of that between the ODPM and the local municipality and all of that.
You don't seem like one who would want to upset the apple cart, but tell us about it.
Yes, so first of all, the Disaster Measures Act, as you're speaking specifically to legislation,
yes,
it requires a review, because it must give, in terms of what I call the hot button or the trigger button, in terms of a disaster, it must give some particular agency, some specific, let me use that word, agency, the authority to be able to hit that hot button. and of my current knowledge of it in terms of that act, it does not do that. So that a shared responsibility or an assumed responsibility or left to be interpreted by particular individuals in a command center situation or in a disaster situation is really another disaster. So my recommendation in terms of legislation, that's a first step that we should make, a review of the Disaster Measures Act. And continuing, you spoke of an overarching, seamless operation. That speaks to policy. So is there a disaster policy that is national? Yes, there'll be one on paper, but is it that it has been reviewed by all stakeholders and all are reading from the same script per se in terms of a policy? Because that is what a policy does. A policy is supposed to give teeth, to use your terms, and to give to put the wheel in the hands of the people who are expected to be able to take charge of matters, especially in a disaster. So my second recommendation on the topic of legislation is a review of the entire disaster policy. So there is a national disaster policy that every stakeholder, every agency is well acquainted with, well outfitted, and well knowledgeable on where and when and how do I kick in, and with all of the attendant practice and drills and all of that that goes with it, so that we are ready to press that button and to be able to bring that care and relief to the people when such a time it comes about.
Of course. Chairman, audits are important to benchmark your assets. Have the Pinal Debe Corporation been audited? Do local government do audits, given the fact that the corporation, not only Pinal Debe, but all corporations seem to be crying out for funds because the funds do not come in time.
So again, you have hit the nail on the head, because in terms of on-time release of funding in the last financial year, the major release came, and it may sound funny actually, but I'll contain myself.
It will sound like a joke, but it is not. And we just had the Minister of Finance read the mid-year budget review.
Yeah, so it came on the last working day of the last financial year. As I said, it may sound like a joke, but it came on the last financial day, and then you have the conditions that if you do not commit, if you do not award, you lose it by the end of that weekend if it comes on a Friday and a Monday. So this year, it is trending in the same direction, because we are past mid-year. The release for the PSIP, which is the critical area for this type of preparation, has not been had. And as you said, and the minister said to go to 50%. I'm seeing, so 50% from zero is quite a task for me to manage, because if you're at zero, 50% of that is really a complex bit of arithmetic. So getting back to the financing and the auditing, you may have seen financial audits are outstanding from corporations. The Pinal Debe Regional Corporation has put things in place to ensure that its financial audits and statements are in place. The point I would like to make, though, is that the chief officer of in the form of the financial officer is not present. This is a position that the ministry is supposed to fill, the Ministry of Local Government, through CPO, whatever other mechanism behind the scenes it takes place. The financial officer is absent in this corporation, amongst other key officers. For example, currently we do not have a chief engineer and all of that, but they all add up. You see, it's Swiss cheese model. The one hole in the slice of cheese in terms of financial officer missing, the next hole in terms of the chief engineer missing, and we continue along.
And who will fill those roles? Who will fill those roles?
The financial officer is assigned by the ministry. That is not done at the local recruitment level. As the Ministry of Rural Development, through its HR mechanisms, would be able to fill chief financial officer role, or they're what you call chief officers by the act. They're the five, and there's financial officer, there's chief engineer, both of which the Pinal Debe Regional Corporation is absent, both positions, and it therefore ties into the whole aspect, apart from the on the ground infrastructure type river cleaning type thing. You open the topic of what are the way I am interpreting what you're asking is what are the other things that contribute. You spoke of legislation, you spoke of auditing, And definitely, yes, and this can happen if you have the positions in place. So then you become capable, you have the capacity to be able to do self-auditing, to be able to have all of your statutory requirements in place. And I also mentioned being a responsible corporation, notwithstanding not having it, we are putting things in place to be able to recruit under a short-term employment vote to be able to have a consultant come in and complete our financial audit in terms of that. There are other audits in terms of what you call process audit, inventory audit, and all of that, that also goes hand in hand under the banner of auditing, which we are completing in terms of that, because we have materials which we have bought to be able to be disaster ready, which is like sandbags, chemicals and so on for cleanup, and we have those reported properly at our committee meetings and all of that. We have a specific committee, disaster management committee at the corporation.
And when you have all of this shortcoming, Chairman, you have a financial squeeze, am I correct?
Well, you have a more than a squeeze. A squeeze sounds like a little, something.
A small term.
Right, but if you, as I mentioned, and as I said, the sum is zero. In PSIP, which we call DP, locally development projects, that is, as I said, the actual infrastructure. For example, let me make it real, because the Burgesses listening, the residents listening will understand. You have a sunken culvert, let's say in the Rock Road area. You have a sunken culvert, the water backs up there. In fact, last flood, I think the flood gauge, it had submerged the flood gauge too, right? Again, not funny. It is the extent of where we need help. And that particular sunken culvert will require money, to buy the culvert, to be able to build a box culvert and so on. That comes under that very same development project, what we call DP in local terms. And if that money is zero at this point in time, I would say we are on red. We are on red, definitely, There's another budgeting, it's recurrent. That's what you do within the corporation. That is, the allocation is $1 million. We had only received 1/10 of that to spread over the 10 regional, the 10 electoral districts. So money, without money, it's an old saying, no money, you'll be going hungry, you'll be going flooded out and all of that, unless there's an arrangement that can come in place now, and someone say, okay, I'm going to take care of all of your financial needs, notwithstanding your non-release. Let me give you this amount of money, and you execute it. If someone can say that tomorrow morning, I will say, okay, that's a good arrangement. I'll not fight our release, which are bound to be given to us by virtue of the budget process. And another ministry says, okay, let's take care of this. There are people living there, 80,000 plus people, and they're going to be submerged under flood and lose their income and require medical care and all of that. This is something that I need to look at. I am hoping that such a windfall or such positive news comes to me.
We are hoping that someone in authority will be listening and take note of this, because as you mentioned, rightfully mentioned, when you mention flooding, it is not just people losing their homes and being flooded out. People lose their income, children cannot go to school, and so on. Right now at this time, children are writing CXE and E-level exams. I imagine they too will be affected.
Yeah, it is a traumatic effect. Yeah, I'm giving you it from being, in it, being a resident in it, being a helper in it, someone who goes out and support, and now sitting in a position of authority, and almost to throw my hands up in the air and say that, I said it before, we are not disaster ready. It is a traumatic effect. It is that part that I am concerned about, because people are not themselves after such a trauma, when they lose everything that they have worked hard for the entire year or maybe past years, and now they see that they cannot. The hardest feeling, the most hurtful feeling, is for a father to look at his children and cannot provide for which he has worked for, and he has lost his animals in the woodland area, where people who have lost cows. And then compounded with that is the fact that we have had a rough dry season, a harsh dry season, and there were some more conditions, let's say in the woodland area, where there was increased salinity. So the water salinity, where the water, for those who know the area, the water travels in both directions.
Where the water from the Mosquito Creek, yes, travel upwards.
Right. And the salinity was in the area of 2,000 ppm, of which to grow crops,
it would destroy your crops, of course.
Yeah, so these conditions, all of this, the people.
And who is monitoring all of this when you all complain?
Well, this typically, by law should be Ministry of Agriculture and its Extension Services. It may require more funding, and that is where the Ministry of Planning program kicks in. The floodgate management here meaning the infrastructural management. We have a number of floodgates that have been rotted off, and because of the fact that I described before, the main reason for that water management, the flow, the hydraulics had been when there was rice and when the cane was about and so on. Now that has gone, those floodgates have fallen into, less care. So there are orphans. There's number 14 floodgate that immediately requires some work, and we need to have them operated, either automated or have personnel assigned to it. In these times, it may be more prudent to have them automated, but they need attention. Again, I'm saying that the Ministry of Planning project is supposed to, by virtue of its scope, address some of these, but we will be faced with floods any time as we speak, because rain is falling. It means that I said before, an amendment should be looked at and critical focus be given at this point in time as we speak to say that we can get in there and do some infrastructural support. We have a bridge in Tulsa Trace, and there are photos about in social media where the entire where the wing walls are has had a separation from the road, and the Siparia Regional, the Borough Corporation has put a steel sheet. But again, that's just a temporary measure. It means that the Ministry of Works is needed to come in there and investigate and allocate a budget and get a team to be able to commence work
and this constant conflict, Chairman, whether it falls under local government or ministry, continues to advocate the loss, and it is only the citizens who will suffer in the end. That bridge at Tulsa Trace, would it affect any schools in the area?
That bridge is near the school actually. It would affect traffic in that area. It would affect access to homes, to residential areas and so on. So it requires urgent attention.
Moving on, strict policing is needed, Chairman. Would you agree? Through a public approach for the youths, especially to be educated through schools and so on. We need programs where they need to be educated more and more how dumping of garbage leads to flooding. And they need to show more respect for the environment. What would you say about this?
Oh, definitely. The issue of flooding and its relationship to sanitation practices is definitely one that I would say is a very precise and clear correlation, and therefore education is a must. It's a good recommendation. I remember the days of Charlie. Charlie had an impact.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say that the Keep Charlie Away campaign was very effective, and it can be used again today.
Yeah, so at the corporation level, we are using our litter wardens for that. We do outreach in schools, actually a number of schools in this area. We target the children, and the principal and so on in the schools are very, very welcoming to this, and we do through our disaster management unit and our litter wardens program, we do education drive. Actually, Pinal, our town center, from assessment that I've received from other persons, is very clean and well maintained. We do a pretty good job there. The education will continue. We have recently done work in the Queen Anne Beach area in terms of cleaning. It has been, through the COVID period, has been in some amount of neglect because beaches were closed and all of that. And we plan to do something very new there, which is to take our litter wardens and do some conversations, have some interaction with the patrons and all of that, so that the word is spread, the edification happens, the education happens, and I think people are good people. The behavioral acumen, the behavioral part of it will kick in terms of contributing properly. I mean, a lot of our burgesses do practice good sanitation practices. We receive our garbage in bags and so on. We have a garbage collection program that goes about, which is the standard one with the trucks and all of that. But yet still, you would see plastics in the waterways. It is something that we cannot doubt, and it means that there's work to do to be able to help each other to get to that point, that desirable point of total waste management and all.
Therefore, people, they need to still be nudged to respect the environment.
I didn't get you clearly.
I said, therefore, people, they need to be nudged or pushed to respect the environment and what it does to climate change.
Well, there are many means of incorporating ways of, for example, I'll give you, so it may mean, yes, nudging and pushing in one hand, but it may mean working together. For example, you would know that on Saturday last, the PDRC partnered with ieTVtt and its other stakeholders to plant, to reforest 2,500 trees in the Bonzi Trace volcano area. So I see that as a means of education. I see that as a means of getting the word out without a push per se. There were 300 persons who registered, so it means that people take well to these things, but we must have it. So that the fact that we had it means that we are in a step in the right direction. If we could reforest that part near the Bonzi Trace mud volcano, and there's a beautiful beach, the La Mochelle Beach, right a stone's throw away, 4 kilometers downhill, is the La Mochelle Beach, which I call the Nylon Pool of the South. It's so beautiful. It means that through those mechanisms, we can be able to all together achieve what we are looking at. Because it means if we frequent the Bonzi Trace mud volcano more, we have a reforested area, we can be able to, in conversation, be able to carry the message of, hey, let's keep a clean scene. Simple message. Cleanliness is next to godliness, you know? And it ties into some of the work that I do. You know, I do what I call value education, right, at a voluntary level in the communities. So it points to that our community programs, right, and we have a Ministry of Community Development, we have Ministry of Social Development and so on, can also utilize these avenues to be able to impact on the homes, on the community, on the individuals, and as you said, through the schools, to be able to bring desirable behaviors that we so wish to have a, you know, a optimum society. So there are many mechanisms, but the buttons need to be pushed. You know, I see a lot of work in the area of human development being done by the social groups, because I am part of that, and so on. I would recommend that there needs to be a review of the community development deliveries, whilst there are deliveries in sewing and crafting and all of that and so on. I think the softer side, the human development side, needs to be touched on also. And in addition, it should be part of the school curriculum, whilst the teachers do a lot on their own. We know that. They are claiming right now they function more than just as educators, as teachers. The fact is that we need some more programs that touch on the inner fabric of the human development side of things. And I think we would get where we wish to be. So yes, in addition to what you describe as the push, which is the punitive, I would say that there's this side that you do, you know, after everything has been done and someone breaks the rule or the law, yes, there's need for that type of policing per se. But in addition, I see a lot of room, and I may say at a personal level, I'm willing to help, because I run these programs from a volunteer standpoint. There are teachers that contribute, there are organizations, Chinmaya Mission, Trinidad and Tobago, you know, do a lot of work in terms of this children development, people development. There was the ieTVtt and the other stakeholders at the Bonzi Trace doing that 2,500 plants with I believe the Forestry Division was involved in it. And there are many other programs that should receive more focus. I am speaking here from a nation perspective. If we are to get into nation building and to reduce some of the other undesirable tendencies.
It will also help to reduce crime among the youth, Chairman. Let us take a short commercial break, and when we come back, I would like you to expand and tell us some more about some of these programs that you're involved in. We'll be right back, viewers. Investigative journalism builds communities. Welcome to Hotline with Dookie on ieTV every Monday live at 1 to 2 p.m. Challenges facing the nation. The economic outlook when wages are not rising as high as food prices. Will we be making a softer economic landing? Some experts are cautiously optimistic now. Health, job security, education, social imbalance, and the security of our nation all comes to mind. Experience all of this and more just ahead on Hotline with Dookie on ieTV. Welcome back, viewers, to Hotline with Dookie on ieTV and ieTVtt.com. Mr. Chairman, thank you for rejoining us. We were discussing some of the programs you are involved in to boost the youths and encourage them into development. Tell us some more about those programs.
Okay, the point I was making is that I see need from a nation-building perspective for more emphasis to be placed and more investment in some of our softer type, human development type programs in our schools and through our community development and community building programs by the Ministry of Community Development and other ministries that are so responsible. My point is in sharing, for example, you asked me in my particular case, let's just take the tree planting. At face value, it is planting a tree. It is removal of soil. It is placing a plant in the soil. Yeah? But at the deeper level of the philosophy and of the ideology, it is really looking at the mango that you are enjoying now has been planted by someone 50 years ago. And therefore, the idea of giving back without anything in return is a very important principle. And these principles what I'm saying should be embedded and be taught, and there are actual programs for which you ask about I am involved in. I gave the example of the tree planting, where you plant that tree. It is a way of giving back that principle, but two, it is also preserving nature so that a watershed will be created there, and that actually is tied into flood management. So my point is that in addition to some of the tangible infrastructural type things that we may see, there's also the softer, intangible development type activities. So getting to some of the other programs, for example, there's a program that I'm involved in, Garden of Values, which teaches children by imbibing, meaning that the teachers and the coordinators of the program must do exactly and behave exactly in the desirable manner that they expect the children to behave. And we believe that through this mechanism, the children will grow to become inspired leaders. So it is along those lines, and there are churches, there are other institutions that do this type of work. I'm involved in the Barakpur area, and I'm saying that even the schools should have this type of inner building, what we call human value development type programs that would allow us to build the inner strength, the inner confidence. For example, on touching on the point of inner confidence, bullying is a problem that I think we are really throwing under the carpet in terms of the amount of children that are bullied, and it is from there that the problem starts, in the sense that when you are bullied now, you grow up with less confidence, you feel less of yourself, and we have all of the depression and the mental disorders kicking in and so on. Are we really constructed? Are we capable from that standpoint to be able to help and deal with that? Or we just deal with what we see on the surface and we move on? So it is from this standpoint I am saying that these programs need to be brought. Now, it will also touch and draw the nexus to one of our major problems, crime, which you mentioned earlier on before. And I will use a very, very clear example. The Petrotrin has been closed down. It was an employer for a number of people, in the thousands, direct employees, and also you had the other stakeholders, the contractors, and then the people with the parlors and the roti shops and all of that. So for whatever reason, and let's assume the technical reason has been right, assuming that, the social impact of that has not been studied. I have not seen, in fact, in a previous conversation, I have asked for a social impact assessment if the UWI or any other competent stakeholder has been asked to conduct such a study. Now, you look at the remote areas, and I am there, I'm on the ground, even before now I am there. You look at areas such as Platanic and areas in Mont Diablo, and you would see where the relationship between what we see and what such persons in those areas see because of inadequate funding to join. I'm speaking here, direct experience from the COVID, to join in and sitting in online classes. You don't have, in some cases, Wi-Fi and data in some cases. Children has just slipped aside. In cases of where employment, so I draw the Petrotrin example, which Petrotrin is a major commercial burgess, a major corporate burgess within the Pinal-Libre region, and we had the Point of Pierre refinery that impacted on this area also, has now gone, that is cut. What happens in those homes is the point I am making, that the social side, the intangible side must be taken into account, right, by administration, whether it is government, local municipality, and so on, and be able to take care of that. Because what happens You had the cable situation where people got cable. So that was a windfall for some of these people in these areas. And then when that stopped and that whole thing finished, it meant that people were brought up to a certain level. Young people I'm speaking of here, as your question is along the line of youth. And then they're dropped like a hot potato, to use the proverbial phrase. Income is no more again. You look at agriculture. One may say, okay, agriculture is an alternative. Are there sufficient supporting mechanisms to be able to ensure that through the initial phases of a young person going into agriculture, he's supported? That is, if he can start at all, because land tenure remains a nightmare in terms of agriculture and getting a farmer's badge and all of that, and all of the other things that is needed, money and for startup and capital, all of that, and then reimbursement in terms of when you have damages, flood damage and all of that. So it is, I am saying, along your lines of that, we need to place special focus on those type of things. Along the lines of youth development, to continue answering your question, we are doing Youth on Saturday. We welcomed and had as a guest in the Clark Rochard Recreation Ground. Thanks very much to that organization, Clark Rochard and the youths. We had the under-19 team. This is Trinidad and Tobago members from that under-19 team. And it is another area where the nexus can be drawn to youth development. These affiliations, these relationships do lead to increase in talent, do lead to development, because you see and the imbibing takes place from others and you rise. And we have had in that particular area one young lady, Amrita, who has moved up to the national level from playing in such a rural club. At the Darenganga ground, we also have the same level of training and interaction taking place. And we are seeing, and the Barakpo area is well known for its fair share of giving the country, and by extension West Indies, cricketers and all of that. So definitely the emphasis needs to be there. The focus needs to be there in terms of this type of development. From my lens, from a community volunteer perspective, I would say that it requires improvement. It requires a bit more attention in that area that I'm speaking of. For example, you have all of let's take one that is very prevalent in the Penal region, the Ramlila. The Ramlila groups, from the information I have not had their monies given to them. And Ramlila is a very costly exercise, but it brings so much benefit to those communities in terms of human development values and ethics and all of that, because that is what it teaches through drama. And it is, I would say it is sad to know that groups are waiting now for that money, and how would this year's Ramlila take place? I think in some cases more than 2 years they have been waiting for the money. And there are other activities, there are church activities, I'm sure there are other activities in different religious institutions, in different institutions of value that require this type of support to continue the work that they are doing towards human development, youth development, and would see us in the long run. It would be a relationship to crime, to bullying, and to all of the ill tendencies that we wish to see eradicated.
Chairman, in the last couple of minutes we have, how have the emergency response been in the Penal Debe area when there is a flooding? I understand in the past, the disaster management unit, they have to wait until the water subsides to access certain communities. Is this true?
Well, before I explained my experience, which was from a resident perspective. So definitely it is one that should be counted, where we did not see that type of help that we needed. Currently, there are some ongoing collaboration between the regional corporation and the ODPM in terms of training and response, and that's so. I am hoping that we would be in good shape now that I am in the chair of delivering that and carrying out that response, that we'll be in a better place to be able to do that. We have done some ICS training, that is incident command type training and all of that. But notwithstanding that, we will be facing a monster that we have not seen before based on the meteorological predictions. So my call remains the same, that it is better to be prepared, and therefore to be prepared, we need the excavators now to be able to clear those waterways in totality, from the beginning of the region in Hagal Trace on the Rock Road side to the Gordino Woodland side, and actually the Woodland area has some more severe phenomenon that needs to be handled, like the embankment and the clearing of certain raised areas in the riverbed and all of that. So
there have been groups that have been doing some voluntary work in the area.
Yes, there have been people generally throughout. In fact, if you drive through Pinalebe, you'll see some little box trains and so on taking place here, and you'll say, but Chairman said that nothing is happening, there's been no release. Those are partnerships. We are working with private residents. In fact, this morning, I have given some from myself. Sometimes members of council give some to areas. I have given some to Rock Road area this morning to buy some half and half gravel for where some mound is needed because water flows into a church from in that area, so we need to build it up, and that is what we are doing. We are coming together. We are resilient people. We are strong people. We are people who have the inner strength to be able to make it happen, and therefore, yes, we are doing work on our own. In the Woodland area, there was a group of residents that did some dredging. In our area here, we are doing some construction and so on with that private partnership approach where private citizens buy material, and we are providing labor and machinery to be able to do what is necessary to help with the flooding alleviation.
Of course, we have mentioned.
Definitely it's not sufficient. It's just a drop in the bucket, maybe less than a drop in the bucket. We need that release that is due to us by
You need the partnering of the various ministries to come together and work together. Let us, yes, before we go, we have just 5 minutes again. Tell me about NAMDEVCO and how it have been affecting farmers, how it have been functioning. I understand this morning there were about 600 signatures where there was some discontent in what is taking place.
The NAMDEVCO, just for clarity, is really has its own management rights in terms of what it does. But because the Pinalebe Regional Corporation, and as chairman, I take a role of being very facilitating whatever is happening in this region. As they say, wherever a pin drops, I get involved because I want to know that my burgesses are happy. One of our aim and our vision is to ensure that our people are happy. I dipped a bit into what is happening at NAMDEVCO. It is a space management and optimization program that they're doing. They are looking at the stalls that are empty and reassigning persons, especially since on Thursday, a farmer has a stall, but on Sunday he moves to a different stall. So they're trying to minimize that and get, if you have a stall on Thursday, you will also have that same stall on Sunday. Okay. It will help with the customer service and all of that. The haberdashery part of it is where they're trying to link all the haberdashery persons to one particular place. I'm only speaking from a third-party perspective. In NAMDEVCO management, I'm sure we'll be able to give more details. But my understanding is after good communication, the farmers were understanding of what the improvement is aimed to bring about, and they have left happy because after the meeting, the farmers did not contact me. Usually I'm very in close communication with all farmers in the region, and I believe they left with some understanding as to what will take place, and I think it's working out positively.
But Chairman, we are wrapping up the program in just about 2 minutes. Challenges ahead, but more rains expected, more runoffs from other areas, coupled with high tide, residents being dissatisfied with the rate of progress, and officials, as an official, are you bracing for more flooding to take place and impassable roads?
Yes, definitely we will see it. If the meteorological prediction is correct, that the rainfall will be more, and if I am saying that we have not been able to clean the large waterways which require the ministries to come in, the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Agriculture, in addition to give us our money that is due to us through the budget process, and we will do what we can do with the culverts and so on. Definitely I am saying that we have to brace for more. We are doing our best. We have prepared sandbags. I can use the opportunity to make an announcement that persons who are desirous of sandbags, contact us, contact any of your councillor. We'll either have them delivered, or if you wish to pick them up, sandbags are available. We are prepping in terms of training. Our disaster management unit have been out on outreach programs. We have been at the Pinal Market together with the ODPM, have joined in and done an outreach at the Pinal Market on Saturday, which is a market day. We have been to a lot of the schools, and we have been in communication with our businesses. We have recently set up a local business directory, which is separate from the disaster management part. That is more on the local economic development area, but it means that we'll have closer communication with the stakeholders who can be able to. Just last week, I had a meeting with the 4x4 people, the big vans and so on, the high raised vans, to be able to seek their support, to know that they are there. They have been so helpful in the past that we will need them. So we are preparing. We are doing our education drives, and we'll hope that we can be able to handle it. But my call remains the same, that the ministries, the Ministry of National Security in terms of ODPM, the Ministry of Planning, which has been charged with the responsibility for the flood adaptation program in the South Oropouche River Basin, and has been given that allocation, that grant, And the Ministry of Works and Transport, major stakeholder, needs to really get out on those rivers, and the Ministry of Agriculture. Two major players, we stand ready to work with them hand in hand. We are already working with them in little we can do at the local level between myself and the Extension Office and the Ministry of Works local office, but we are limited. It is obvious that we'll need more equipment.
Of course, you need further help. Chairman Gowtam Maharaj, Chairman of the Penal Debe Regional Corporation. Winston Churchill once said, the farther backward you can look, the farther forward you will see. I am Ann Dookie. Thank you for joining me.